What's the worth of a man? For Steve Austin, it's $6 million. Lee Majors is Steve Austin. Steve Austin is the $6 million man, and he's worth every penny.
Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Right, welcome to another episode of Battle of the Network shows. I'm Mike. I'm here with Rick, and today we have a kind of a special episode. It's our first listener request, and my friend Andrew Reinhard asked us to do this. It was it's actually a two-parter, which is an added bonus to making this special. It's our first two-parter, and it's the $6 Million Man. Here's what Andrew had to say about these episodes. I watched The $6 Million Man as a kid and never missed an episode. I was obsessed. I had the 10-inch action figure and his blue and white spaceship. When Steve Austin wasn't on, I'd watch The Bionic Woman. But then this brace of episodes happened with the scary Doctor Who-like robot. I could only get through maybe part one of the show. I was afraid to watch the follow-up a week later. My dad laughed at me. I sat through it, totally freaked at this sentient robot on wheels. It had a claw or something, and I just remember being so afraid that something like this could exist. I wasn't afraid for the Bionic Man, I was afraid for me. I watched the episodes again in syndication when I was much older, but was still weirded out and uncomfortable. I'll try again now that this podcast is out, but I have a bad feeling about this. And Andrew, you may have actually seen, if you've seen the documentary Atari Game Over, about the dig in New Mexico at landfill that contained Atari games and hardware. He was the lead archaeologist on that project and appears in the documentary. He also is involved in a movement called punk archaeology, which I can't really explain to you, and also one called archaeo gaming, which involves doing archaeology within video games, and I can't quite explain that either. But he's a good guy, a smart, funny guy, and we're excited to try this out.
Yeah, thanks for the request. Thanks for supporting the show.
Yep, and I think maybe at the end we'll talk about requests again. $6 Million Man, I don't think either of us have an abiding memory of watching it. I mean, I certainly was aware of it as a kid. Since it started the year I was born, it's not quite in my memory like things like The Incredible Hulk. I do know my brother had the toy, and it was certainly, I was aware of it and had seen it and probably saw it in reruns a little bit, but, I don't know a ton about it. I did do a little research. So it first aired as 3 TV movies in 1973 and then became a series in 1974, and it's based on a novel called Cyborg by Martin Caidin, who actually wrote a series of novels about Steve Austin, the Bionic Man, and it also spun off into the Bionic Woman, which apparently ran on a different network than the $6 Million Man, but they were both canceled the same year. I guess people were just tired of Bionics.
Yeah.
At that point, we've had enough. Some other bits of sort of trivia. In the original TV movie, Darren McGavin played the Oscar Goldman character, although he had a different name. The great Darren McGavin, excuse me.
Exactly.
And the great Martin Balsam played Dr. Rudy Wells, the scientist who puts the bionics in Steve Austin. And so Steve Austin is a test pilot. He's in a horrible accident, but they have the technology, and they give him a new right arm, 2 legs, and he's also bionic in one eye. And I found, according to Wikipedia, his bionic eye, which is his left eye, gives him a 20 f/2.1 zoom lens, night vision, and infrared vision. His legs, he can run at least 60 miles per hour, and his arm has the strength of a bulldozer and a built-in Geiger counter.
Comes in handy.
Yeah, I don't know if it must have some other gadgets too. I mean,
Yeah, I think they might have added some. Maybe they added a few things as the show went on. Probably.
yeah, and we learned. I mean, in this episode, they can come and do like field repairs on him. So I'm sure they could add things as they needed to, and as the technology advanced. You know, new operating system, USB ports.
Right. Although the 70s, the economy being what it was, money probably grew tighter, and after you blew $6 million on them, who knows how much they had left over for
That's true.
upgrades throughout the rest of the decade.
Maybe he's the cause for the recession.
Could be.
You know.
Although it doesn't seem like they did come up with a Bionic Woman though, so
Yeah.
maybe there was some kind of.
So that's another $6 million, presumably.
That's right.
Maybe they had gotten the cost down by then.
Could be. You got some economies of scale.
Yeah, and he is, you know, although he's employed by the government, he is giving back. It's not like they just made him bionic and then he went and drove a cab.
Right, or entered a decathlon and
Right.
Went out for the Olympics or
Yeah.
made a lot of money in sports or something like that.
Right. And the footage in the opening credits of the plane crash is from an actual NASA accident, and the dialogue that Steve Austin is saying is based on the radio transmissions from that accident. Another sort of interesting thing is that maybe it's not interesting, but so when I was I think in 5th and 6th grade, someone from NASA came to our school and gave a big presentation, and both times I think it was a different guy, but they probably had the same presentation, but they had a model of that particular aircraft, and he would point out that was the one from the $6 Million Man. He also, the other thing I remember is he talked about Venus. They had a thing where they would tell you about basically how many ways you would die at the same time if you went to Venus.
Hey, that sounds like a fun presentation.
Yeah. At least 5 or 6 ways, and then when that comes up, a character actually rattles off a bunch of those. Not all of them, but
were they trying to scare straight any kids that might have thought about going to Venus on their own?
Yeah, I
without
think so.
parental supervision.
yeah, you know how kids want to go to Venus
Right.
and can build rocket ships in their
Well,
backyard.
I'm glad they came in and set them straight. You never tried to go to Venus, did you? So it worked
No.
on you at least.
Oh, totally. I would never go to Venus.
That's good to know.
And not even now. As an adult who can make responsible choices,
Yeah, you'd still
I would still veer away from
not
that.
for you.
No. So this character, Irina, who appears in this episode, and we see a flashback, I did find out that's from a season 1 episode, episode 6, called Doomsday and Counting. And in that episode, she was engaged to a cosmonaut named Vasily Zhukov, played by Gary Collins.
Gary Collins, about as
Yeah.
Russian as they come.
But he died in that episode, which frees up Irina and Steve for, well, we'll find out.
Geopolitical flirtations.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and there were Kenner toys. My brother did have the Steve Austin action, I'm going to call him action figure.
Yeah,
he was doll size.
They were like the G.I. Joe, like
Yeah.
the old G.I. Joe size.
Yeah. And he had like you could look through, the back of his head. It had an eye, like a lens in there for the bionic eye. I don't think it really gave you any better view of anything.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and I remember they reused that in the Boba Fett figure of that size, had a scope like that. And he had little, I think his legs had little panels and stuff that opened on them, so you could see the bionics. And his arm might have been silver.
Yeah, I think my exposure to the show was through the toys. Not that I had the toys, but I just remember seeing the toys advertised in comic books.
Yeah.
And just always thinking they looked cool. But for some reason, I just didn't have much exposure to the show. And part of it, I was young at the time, but I don't exactly remember why I wouldn't have been watching it. But I do remember seeing those toys and sort of like half wanting the toys, and I think there were some vehicles and things like that, but never had any. But it seemed like through like ads and toy ads and things, like the show was always a pretty big presence, even though I wasn't actually watching it.
Yeah, it's definitely a pop culture presence, I think even now, at least for people of a certain age.
Yeah,
I mean, the sound effects still come back and stuff.
Right.
And
it was a very popular show for
Yeah.
a couple of years. It was a top 10 show, I think, for several years.
Would you say, I know Lee Majors was around from Big Valley, but this is what made him a big deal, right? Or was he already a big deal, or did marrying Farrah Fawcett make him a big deal?
He had been around a while, but I think it was the show, and then because didn't he marry? I think he married Farrah Fawcett after the show was already on the air. So that was I think it was a partnership of two pretty big stars at the time. I don't think it was like he upgraded by marrying her, but because I think $6 Million Man became, I don't know if it was a hit right from the beginning, but it was a pretty big anchor for ABC. I think in its first or second year, which would be about 74 to 75. So yeah, Lee Majors, it was around for a while, in the Big Valley, and did a lot of work on television. But I think this is the show that made him a superstar, really. In the 1970s, he was a superstar.
Yeah, all right. So we'll get into the episodes here now, or the first part. We're going to try talking about the first part, then doing a little intermission segment, and then come back and talk about the second part. The episode is called Death Probe.
Yeah, so thanks again, Andrew, and thanks for making us do more work. Giving us a 2-part episode. But okay, so let's get into this. This is Death Probe Part 1. I'll talk a little about here, and this is from the 4th season of the show, and it aired January 9th, 1977, Sunday night, 8 p.m. on ABC. As the episode begins, the U.S. military calls Condition Yellow and scrambles fighter planes in response to a mysterious flying object that appears on radar. When the object eludes them, OSI's Oscar calls Steve Austin the $6 Million Man and summons him to Wyoming. Meanwhile, a group of Russian military operatives are also tracking the object. They are dumbfounded to discover that it's landing in northern Wyoming, and they declare they must reach it before the Americans do. On a ranch, a farmer sees his animals acting agitated, running around and making various noises. Eventually, the farmer hears a heavy rumbling noise like industrial machinery, and he sees the Russian craft coming his way. The Death Probe is a metallic, somewhat discolored spacecraft with vents and panels and wheels that allow it to get around slowly. After withstanding a few rifle blasts, the probe turns away and heads off in the other direction. Meanwhile, a secretary, a photographer, and a gas station attendant all get a phone call from someone who asks, "Have you looked at the sky lately?" A coded message to spur them to action to track down the probe. The three gather at the Eagle City Inn. Back at OSI, Oscar Goldman tells Steve the probe is a threat to national security and could be a weapon of some sort. The two get a jet to Wyoming, where they visit a sheriff who heard from the farmer about the encounter he had with a, quote, monster from Mars. Unfortunately, before they arrive, the sheriff has already talked to an Oscar Goldman, that is one of the trio of activated sleeper agents, and gave him directions to the place. The agents pose as reporters working on a story and get the details from the farmer. The secretary calls Major Anatoly Popov, the top Soviet agent in America, and gives him the track of the probe. Popov shares his unease with scientist Irina, who Mike talked about. After making the sheriff feel like a fool, the real Oscar and Steve Austin visit that same farm, where an agent now impersonates the farmer after binding and gagging the real one. Steve figures out the ruse and confronts the imposter, who commits suicide after being apprehended. The remaining agents set a trap to eliminate Goldman and Austin, but a sweet discus-like hubcap toss by Steve incapacitates the gas station attendant agent. So the capture of those two agents reveals useful info, and Oscar confirms that there are Soviet, as he says, agents all over the place, and that the thing is a Russian spacecraft of some kind. He and Steve go to the woods to conduct a search for the probe in tandem with the Army. Major Popov and Irina are out in the field trying to stop the space probe. Irina hopes to salvage the craft that she helped build to explore Venus, but her gadgets have no effect. She theorizes that the craft does think it is on Venus, but that the farmer's gunshot was interpreted by the craft as a meteor shower, which made the probe then launch some kind of override. She says that there's nothing on Earth that could stop it now. Popov, though, has a locked case with his own solution inside. A device that will destroy the Venus probe. He fears the valuable craft falling into the hands of the Americans. Popov is then struck by one of the probe's arm-like metal extensions before he can activate the device. Steve comes on the scene and manages to divert the probe in the opposite direction so he can come to the aid of Irina, who he recognizes from Season 1's Doomsday and Counting. After a nice little flashback sequence, Irina explains the current situation to Steve Austin. The probe is made of a new alloy, a super metal, that makes it vital to the Soviets' interests. Oscar and Steve note that the probe is moving on a set pattern north, right towards a populated town. Steve asks for a shot at confronting the thing and maybe stalling it before they risk a panic by evacuating the whole town on such short notice. Steve does catch up with the death probe and tosses some boulders at it, but they bounce off, and the behemoth knocks him over and rumbles toward him as we end Part 1.
Exciting.
It is. There's a lot going on here. It says international intrigue, a renegade probe.
The question of what's more important in a Cold War time, protecting your assets or protecting humanity from a raging probe.
That's pretty deep. Yeah, let's talk about this raging probe, man.
It kind of is scary.
Well, I have mixed feelings about this.
It sometimes isn't scary. But
yeah.
I think, at least for a while, they do a good job of filming it in a way that it's kind of, I mean, it's taking up the whole frame.
Right.
It won't, it just keeps moving
Yes.
towards you. And so it looks, I would say, it looks to me, I would compare it to a, sort of if you took like an Apollo space capsule, took off the windows and put like solar panels on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has these like two sort of stationary arm things pointing forward from it. Then it also has like a little arm that comes out with a claw that comes into use a little bit in this one and a lot in the second part. But and once that opens, like it never goes back in. It's a one-time
Right.
thing, and I'm sure it was there to pick up rocks or something. But you know,
specimens.
but it uses it as a defensive weapon. And it looks like it's huge until you see it like in a shot with Steve Austin.
Yeah,
and then it's big-ish, but I mean it's not any. It's well, I mean it probably is a golf cart, but underneath it, it's just kind of like a big golf cart.
Yeah, when they shoot it, like you say, when they shoot it from certain angles and certain like kind of forced perspectives, and they like there's a couple of shots, even like after Steve like falls down on the ground and it's coming directly toward him, or pop off when it's coming toward him. It does look menacing. It looks more like a tank.
Yeah.
But there's even some of the overhead shots, when you sort of see it like in relation to other objects, it's a little disappointing. It doesn't quite look as menacing as you would hope.
Right.
Now, but having said that, though, here's the question I would ask you. At the time, say you have a $6 million man action figure.
Yeah.
If they made a Death Probe toy, would you have wanted to get the toy?
I think so. Yeah.
I definitely would have wanted to get it. Yes.
Because it probably would have been motorized. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it lights up.
Right. And if it had been like I had a toy, Super Joe, which I don't know if that's related to G.I. Joe. I don't know what the deal with that was. But it was more like a science fiction guy. But it was that size, and he had a vest that had a light, basically a light bulb on it.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the nemesis for him was a big motorized monster.
Hmm.
And if you could shine the light or a flashlight in the right, like a slot on the bottom of it, it would stop.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just, terrorize your house. Or the batteries would run down and it would.
Right.
So if there had been a Death Probe toy like that same technology,
Yeah.
yeah.
That could have been fun. And that's one other thing about it is every now and then they'll go to a close-up and they'll show like the lights flashing on the panel that almost looks like eyes or something. It looks like the machine is thinking
Right.
or processing something, and they use that kind of effectively to give it a little more bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And the characters in the episode do their best to put over how menacing it is.
Right.
I still think though the fact that it moves so slowly, that's like when it's confronting the farmer just sort of backs up and you sort of get the feeling that he could run away at any time.
Right.
And that kind of takes away for me some of the impact of this Death Probe, because he's not like firing lasers at him.
No.
He's just coming towards him and like.
Right. When I'm thinking when he grabs the farmer's gun, his shotgun, with the arm that comes out.
Yeah.
And then like puts it on the ground and bends the barrel.
Yeah.
Which is pretty smart. But I don't know that he needed to do any.
It's a little show-offy.
I'm not sure why I'm ascribing a gender to this thing either. But
yeah. That's true. Yeah. Well, the one thing I liked about that scene was that the farmer took a couple shots, and then when he ran out of bullets, he did throw the gun at
that's right.
the Death Probe. Which didn't prove effective, but at least he took a shot at it. So I got to respect that. I did enjoy that part.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this probe, and I guess it's basically functioning kind of like a tank. It does run over things, and I guess if it gets in the way of people, it could cause some damage.
Yeah. Well, they're afraid. Again, I might be crossing over to the next segment. I don't know, but they're afraid that it's going to either run through a town, or also there's a dam that it might run through.
I think they mentioned that in part 2, and that's probably the real big menace, as opposed to the Death Probe going into town and mugging people or holding them
running
up.
through storefronts.
And generally causing a ruckus.
Yeah, I think people would have time to get out of the way.
Yeah, I don't think the damage is probably more to property and things like that rather than individual humans. But it is menacing. Now, if you tangle with it, all bets are off, though.
Yeah, because it's made out of this metal that could survive the harsh conditions of Venus.
Yeah, so apparently what a colossal failure this was for the Soviets. On one hand, it's a pretty cool thing that they built, but on the other hand, we don't really know. And a matter of fact, I think they say, and again, this might be in part 2. They still don't know what happened exactly, why it didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
But
Like at first, I thought they just launched it poorly.
yeah,
But then at some point they talk about it. I think it actually went into orbit at least, and somehow got sent back to Earth.
yeah,
Like went slingshot around something, around the Earth, or it was confusing.
yeah.
Science which comes. There's a lot of science actually in both parts.
Yes, there is. But ultimately, it's kind of a rusted heap
Yeah.
that's kind of roaming the countryside of Wyoming, which, there might be a little more urban cowboy aspect to Wyoming today. We had, had a Dick Cheney, vice president from there, correct? And I'm sure there's lots of sophisticated people in the state of Wyoming, but those people aren't in this episode. No. The $6 Million Man's depiction of people in Wyoming, they're all a bunch of hayseeds, I think you could say.
Yeah.
The incredulous farmer who, golly,
Right.
And the sheriff who is a typical small town rural sheriff in this episode.
And those two guys look really alike too. Like where I had the thought for just a second, well, was that farmer the sheriff?
Yeah, that'd be kind of an interesting
Did attack the
twist.
sheriff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the sheriff just doesn't want these government people bothering him.
Yeah.
Or press. Like he thinks because of the ruse the Russians pull, he thinks Oscar and Steve are journalists.
Yeah. Just pesky reporters trying to get themselves a story. They don't want any stories getting out.
No.
Wyoming's fine without stories.
Yeah. Boy, I hope that guy never ran into Jack McGee.
Yeah, let's hope.
Maybe he did. Maybe that's why he's so fed up with reporters.
It could be. The whole place could be traumatized by some early encounters. I would like to see the Hulk against the Death Probe, actually.
I would too. I think that would be something.
Because Steve's got the bionic, some of it's bionic, but all of the Hulk is super powered. So
Yeah, I'd like to see the Hulk versus the Bionic Man.
yeah,
I mean, they're both basically on the side of good. Well, the Hulk, I don't know.
Hulk's kind of a tweener sometimes, depending on the circumstance. Yeah. I'm imagining that Steve Austin would be trying to take down the Hulk and subdue him in some way.
Right.
The Hulk would be running away.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have teamed up to overpower this Death Probe.
Right. And maybe they could have gotten the Bigfoot character from other episodes involved in that team up.
Yes, and then if they got Battlestar Galactica involved somehow.
Yeah.
This would be the...
They're all Universal shows. So
and the Shmoo. If they
Shmoo.
somehow get the Shmoo, because I don't think the Shmoo would back down against the Death Probe.
I don't think so.
So.
And he could, if he got run over, he would be okay.
Exactly.
You know, he might lose some of his mustache, but.
Yeah. Speaking of mustaches.
Yeah.
So Steve Austin in this season is sporting the nice mustache.
He is. Yeah. It's an interesting mustache. It's not like a bushy man mustache. It's a more of a Errol Flynn kind of mustache.
Yeah, it's more dashing than machismo kind of thing. I kind of wonder what the thinking was behind that.
I think it's just the times, man.
Well, I mean, but
but he is a military guy.
Yeah.
Or he's a colonel.
He's
in
military.
He's also apparently been to the moon and.
Yeah, he was an astronaut and.
But maybe it's so he can blend in when he's on these missions for the OSI.
I'm sure that's what he told them. It was probably it was his idea. I'm sure it wasn't Oscar Goldman and OSI didn't tell him, right. Steve, grow a mustache.
Yeah.
You're having troubles blending in.
Because it's not just the mustache. He's very a man of his times. His hair is a little longer, which really stands out when they have the flashback, and he looks more military. He's got short hair and no mustache, obviously, and now he's got kind of long hair, and he's got the mustache and his outfit, which I don't know what you call that kind of. That's not a leisure suit. Is it an action suit?
You mean like the kind of slacks and like open collared shirt he's running around the.
Yeah, and he's got a jacket too
and,
that matches the the slacks. So I don't know what you call that. Like that to me seems, it's almost like a suit in terms of having a coat, but then it's made out of like khaki or something. Yeah.
Now, didn't the action figure, didn't it come with like a more of a jumpsuit, like an astronaut suit, rather than a leisure suit? Maybe it should have come with like an assortment of like 1970s style.
It might have been available. I don't know. He did. Yeah, he had there's like a red jumpsuit, which, and I think in the opening credits you see him in that a little bit, and other things, but I don't think he ever wore a uniform like that. So, but this has really wide collars.
Yeah.
It's like a green shirt, a tasteful green shirt, but the jacket and pants, they're almost white. It's very and Oscar's like kind of 70s looking too.
Yeah, they're both of their time, but not over the top.
Right.
If that makes sense, and Lord knows there was plenty of over the top in that time period.
Yeah, I would say that when the Russian agent who kills himself, his undercover job was as like a fashion photographer.
Yeah.
And he had bracelets and alligator shoes, which is what tips off Steve that he's not actually a farmer.
Right.
And some other jewelry and stuff going on.
Yeah, he had more the kind of look that sort of looking at it now you'd think, well, that guy must have been going through a midlife crisis. But from what I understand from watching television in the 70s, everybody in the 70s was going through a midlife crisis, apparently. That's how all males were.
Right.
And that guy kind of epitomized that, whereas Steve Austin, Lee Majors, they're more... Lee Majors has kind of a nice, like, everyman kind of swagger, he brings to the role. He's not cocky. He's humble.
Yeah.
He wants to do the right thing. He's definitely got that kind of all-American thing going. And the mustache, it's fine with me in this episode.
Yeah, it worked. It didn't.
I'm assuming that was Lee Majors' idea, and that they worked around the mustache.
I think it works better than when he had a perm in The Fall Guy.
Yeah, I think so.
But,
I would agree with that. Now, do you think the mustache was bionic, or do you think the mustache was, because it was generated on its own, probably didn't have bionic properties?
I don't think so. I don't think
That's kind of disappointing.
It would be interesting, though, if
they
had added that in the opening credit. Like his lip got damaged in the final episode of season 3.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
Yeah, right.
I kind of want to grow a mustache. We can take care of that. Because Rudy, the doctor, who comes out, and was a regular character by then, he has a mustache too.
Yeah.
So I think that would be on his list of things he would want to make bionic.
Right. Maybe maybe somewhere after season 3, Rudy, Steve Austin went in for a tune-up, and Rudy gave him that mustache without telling him.
Yeah.
So Steve Austin woke up and something funny, and just kind of absentmindedly grazes his lip, and he's like, "Hey, what's this cookie duster you got on my?" And then Rudy would try to talk up how great the mustache was, and
because he doesn't have to trim it.
Right.
He
probably couldn't trim it.
Right. I would think, because I don't know what other bionic powers a mustache would have, that maybe he could choose the look of it.
Like customize, like Steve Austin could, or
right? Yeah. Just like he could
refine it.
I want a Burt.
Yeah.
And it would just become a Burt Reynolds mustache, and they would come up with a sound effect for it.
Yeah, for the mustache.
Yeah. Can we talk about the sound effects a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
So, people probably know the most common, the sort of the jumping one, the da-na-na-na-na kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they're also like, woo! That goes on. There's ones for when he throws stuff. Like the frisbee toss. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, in our professional lives, without getting into details, we've had to try to find ways to describe that sound on occasion. I don't think, because it was out of context, we had to.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with something, which I'm not going to say, but maybe that's something we can ask the audience to. How would they describe that sound? Now, not in an onomatopoeia way, because we could do that.
Yeah.
That's, but using words to describe that sound, or any of the bionic sounds.
Yeah, I did take note of how the closed captions in this on the DVD describe it.
Yeah, they did describe it?
They did describe it, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But they described it a little bit more generically. I don't know if you want me to reveal what they said.
Maybe off.
Okay.
Mic.
Right. Yeah. It was. I don't think it was as good as what we would have done.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bit of a cop out.
Right.
I'm sure our listeners could be more creative than the quote unquote official description. But
yeah, I'm not sure it's actually necessary in the context of the show to even do anything.
Yeah.
Because it's just there to kind of add to the
right.
feel of it more.
And people know from the slow motion that something bionic's about to happen. That's the cue the show uses,
Which, when we get to part 2, I think we'll be talking a lot about the slow motion.
Okay.
But also, a lot of the at least the Wikipedia episode guides will include what kind of bionic actions he does.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't have any for part one. But for part two, they have a really good one.
Okay.
So look forward to that. Another thing I like, Oscar Goldman's suitcase phone.
It was pretty snazzy.
Yeah. And at the time, that probably was. Ooh, he's got a phone in his suitcase.
Yeah.
Or his briefcase, not suitcase.
Right.
But at the same time, you look at it and you go, I bet that was a really easy prop to make.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
they just took the receiver from a phone.
Standard, yeah.
The kind of phone, I don't know what you call that now, but they would have had everything in one. The sort of, I don't know, more
Yeah.
rectangular sort
Right,
of.
not with the receiver, not with a separate receiver, but with like the receiver and the
Yeah,
and the
Yeah.
earpiece in the same unit.
right. And probably the dial too, or the touch tone. They probably had touch tone because they were bionic.
Yeah.
Bionic phone. But really, they just had to stick that in there and attach the cord to something, and you just open the briefcase and pull
Yeah.
it out
And then there you go.
and call up the secretary. But it was still cool.
Yeah, it was nice. He get portable, effective, and Oscar's got connections. He
Yeah.
can make one call and get hold of the Secretary of Defense pretty quickly.
Or, yeah, I don't know what, the secretary of something.
Yeah, I was wondering that, but I think something he said like after one of those times, and that might have been in part two again, sounded like he was talking about Department of Defense, so I assumed he was talking about the Secretary of Defense. Or maybe there's a Secretary of Renegade Alien Probes
Right.
that he happened to have on speed dial too. But either way, yeah, he's making connections because he's got access. He's the man.
Yeah. And I like that, at least in this episode, he's there on the ground with Steve.
Yeah, and he
Like-
apparently has full authority out in the field too, so
Yeah.
it's important. But yeah, he's rolled up his sleeves and he's out there helping conduct. Basically, he is conducting the search.
Yeah, and I don't think that's always the case. I mean, I think a lot of times he's back at the office.
Yeah, and this one they sort of involve the military, but the military is deferring to him
Right.
on all the big decisions and everything. So
And I'm surprised they didn't give Steve a bionic ear. I mean, I guess if he didn't need it, they didn't. But, like, I mean, when he's out in the woods chasing the probe, he doesn't even take a walkie-talkie.
yeah,
He has no way to communicate with them at all. He doesn't, or maybe he could have a phone in his leg.
that's a phone in his leg.
Just opens up a hatch.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like he should probably go into battle trying to get his other body parts injured so he can get an
Right.
upgrade on those too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were him. I'd make sure that instead of having the right arm get hurt, I'd lean over towards something and have him get shot in the left arm, so that Rudy has an excuse to build up that one and can shell out a few more
Yeah.
bucks. And I was actually surprised because I didn't remember that he was only like half bionic.
You thought
I
it was
assumed
a
like the
whole
whole he had some kind of bionic exoskeleton or something,
Yeah.
so that he had everything. But I guess he's bionic enough. But like
Yeah.
I didn't know that he only had one bionic arm, for example,
Right.
and one bionic eye.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. I guess that's enough
Yeah.
most of the time.
I noticed that his bionic eye happens to be on the same side as Lee Major's kind of active eyebrow.
Interesting. I did not notice that.
Yeah, well, I noticed Lee Major's eyebrow, like left eyebrow, arching a lot. Kind of like DeForest Kelly's, I think, is other side, but and Spock has active eye. It caught my attention.
I didn't notice that.
Maybe his eyebrows are bionic,
Could
along
be.
with his bionic mustache.
Yeah, I guess I was so fixated on the mustache that
Yeah.
I missed a lot of good eyebrow acting. I might have
Right.
to go back and look at this one again.
Yeah, I think you probably look at anything with Lee Majors and find that. Like probably, the Fall Guy has that same.
Yeah.
I think it's just who he is. But
Hey, he gets it done.
now, how about the notable guest star?
Well, there's several, I guess.
Several.
The major pop-off was
Okay.
Nehemiah Persoff, who was a character actor and was in lots of things. He
Yeah.
plays like the big major in this one, and he often played foreign agents, ethnic types, and he certainly does that here as sort of the semi-hapless major Popoff,
Yeah.
who I think we'll talk more about him in the next episode. Who are you referring to? The secretary?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
But I'll tell you, the secretary is played by Beverly Garland, who we know, at least from My Three Sons, the later years of My Three Sons, where she played the woman who married Fred McMurray, and she was mother to Dodie.
Yes. We don't hold that against her, though.
No. So I kind of, that was exciting. Like, oh. But then I didn't recognize her. And then having Oscar call someone the secretary just confused things, even though he said he.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I didn't know. I had to look up who she played.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. She was okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, in terms of this episode, she is billed only as the secretary.
Yeah.
But earlier, yeah, we were talking about secretary like in Washington, D.C. as an
Right.
administration
So
secretary.
she's one of the Russian undercover.
Yeah. She works with some development office, like some
Yeah.
business.
And actually, she does. Of those agents, she has some significant dialogue, I guess.
She does, and well, she should have been. I mean, she had a distinguished career. She was on just about every show, I think, of the 50s and 60s. She was great, and she was also in an early show called Decoy, like an old crime show where she was a policewoman on that. So, it's glad they took advantage, utilized her a little bit on this. So yeah, it was good to see her. Although she was dispatched pretty quickly.
Right.
I expected her to have, I guess when I saw her in the credits, I expected her to have even a bigger role than she did.
Yeah, and we should mention Oscar says one of your favorite lines ever.
Yes, Oscar, when
He points a gun at her.
Yeah, he points a gun at her because he knows something's up. She's still trying to play like she's just a regular American, and she does a ruse where she says that her car is having problems,
Right.
and it's an attempt to lure them out so that they can be picked off by the other surviving agent, and he basically isn't having any of that, and he wants her to basically get out of the way so that they can get on. He says to her, he's pointing a gun at her, and he's like, "If I'm wrong, I'll apologize," which I just love that line.
Right.
It's kind of like I'm just saying,
Yeah.
kind of the equivalent of that, or.
Right.
Hey, if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. So apparently that insulates you from any potential ramifications of a wrong decision you make now. And I'm sure that's been used before, but the reason I love it is the old Nick Carter Master Detective movies with Walter Pidgeon. He said that all the time. I think he said that about 5 or 6 times a movie, and I just love that line. So, yeah, when Oscar Goldman said that, the episode was made for me. That was a highlight, definitely.
Yeah. Anything else on this episode, do you think?
I don't know. I think we probably hit most of the highlights of part 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll pick up some other stuff in part 2.
It certainly ended on a cliffhanger.
It sure did. Steve is perhaps helpless.
Yeah.
He's prone. He's down on the ground, and that death probe it's a coming.
It is. I don't know what's going to happen.
We'll find out in part 2, I think.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be back after these brief messages.
Colonel Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man.
Urgent! Your mission is to capture the spy. Quick, into the rocket!
And Kenner's $6 Million Man Bionic Transport and Repair Station.
Switch rockets to full power. Hey, something's wrong. The rocket's crashing. Colonel Steve Austin's hurt. Get him into the repair station. We'll have to check him out. Yeah, we can rebuild him. Check all bionic systems. Arm readout faulty. Replace modules. Any head injuries? No damage here. Steve's computer readout A-OK. Operations a success. Check bionic eye. A-OK. Let's test his strength. Can he lift the engine block? Did it. Let's get the spy. There he is. I see him. I surrender.
New Bionic Transport and Repair Station sold separately. The $6 Million Man, new from Kenner.
Kenner's new Oscar Goldman with exploding briefcase.
I have a secret assignment for the $6 million man. It's in my briefcase. Careful, if it's open wrong, it'll self-destruct. Check video scanner. Oscar will contact headquarters. Your orders, Steve. Hey, Mascatron has the briefcase. Look out, it'll blow apart.
Oscar Goldman with exploding briefcase, $6 Million Man and Mascatron, each sold separately.
It's Kenner's new $6 Million Man Play-Doh set.
You can mold Steve Austin, Mascatron too. Lots of Play-Doh adventure for you.
This is the new Bionic Woman Play-Doh set with all-terrain vehicle. With Jamie Summers, Oscar and friends, you can mold them over and over again.
The $6 Million Man Play-Doh set and the Bionic Woman Play-Doh set, each sold separately, new from Kenner.
And we're back for part 2 of Death Probe.
Yes. Part 2 aired January 16th, 1977, and it begins with a recap of part 1, and after that, Steve Austin versus the Death Probe resumes. Steve tries several strategies to no avail. When he picks up a metal rod, the probe does the same, and then the two have a brief sword fight. The machine tries to crush Steve's right arm, and he barely escapes, using his bionic leg strength to push the probe back. Then the probe shoots a cable around him like a lasso, and extends a whirring disc-shaped blade right at him. Steve squirms to elude the mini disc saw and manages to sever the cable with it before making a strategic retreat back to the base camp. Steve claims he's alright, but his arm is useless and needs to be replaced. Oscar and Irina give him some bad news. The Venus probe is on path to destroy several highly populated areas and possibly a big dam. It has enough fuel for 5 years, and Popov's device is booby-trapped. Irina says the probe is designed to withstand anything in the solar system, and that the only thing that could stop it would be a nuclear warhead. Oscar prepares to call the Defense Department for conventional weapons first, and then maybe more. But Steve suggests using a thermal gel that burns at 3,000 degrees. The resulting airstrike using those chemicals has little if any effect on the probe, and Oscar calls for evacuation of the nearest town. Major Popov is back up, though concussed, and he expresses regret that the town had to be evacuated. He joins Oscar, Steve, and Irina as they head for the probe's latest reported location. It is holding up a glass shard as a mirror and observing itself. Popov opens up his case he's been carrying around and pulls out a wire-guided missile with an explosive charge. The nose of the rocket is made from the same alloy as the machine. Steve, his arm in a sling now, runs after the probe to draw it out of the woods so Popov can get a clear shot at it. After some maneuvering, Oscar says, "Wait until Steve," and Popov fires anyway, creating a big blast as the show heads to break. After the commercial, it turns out that Steve is alright, but so is the probe, which rumbles away to threaten more destruction. Dr. Rudy, fresh in from Washington, repairs Steve's arm, but he warns that it's a temporary fix until he can get back to the lab. Rudy laments that without that lab, he's like a fish out of water. That phrase gives Steve the eureka moment he needs to devise a plan. A deep sea fish that rises to the surface will explode, Steve explains, because it is not pressurized for the conditions. Since the probe is pressurized for Venus, if they can get it to the thinner air of a higher altitude, its inner pressure will tear it apart like an overinflated balloon. Irina guesses that getting it to 1,500 feet would probably do it, but definitely 2,000 feet. The plan involves Steve flying a helicopter and setting its autopilot to hover over the probe while he attaches a giant hook to the hole in its top that was designed for loading purposes. It's a lengthy sequence with Steve struggling to get close enough to attach the hook without being myrtleized by the probe. He also ties a makeshift headband around his forehead for no apparent reason. He finally succeeds in attaching the hook, but his arm gives out while trying to climb back up a ladder into the cockpit. Also, now he must pilot the chopper up high enough to explode the probe and then somehow parachute to safety. Again, the show milks this sequence for all it's worth, with people on the ground calling out the altitude level as it goes up and wondering why Steve doesn't bail. It takes a lot longer for the probe to explode than they projected, and Steve has to fly well over 2,000 feet before there is a big explosion. Does Steve make it? Well, all I'll say now is that a new episode of The $6 Million Man did air the next week, January 23rd, 1977. That is part 2.
Part 2, the action-packed part 2.
Yeah, so what'd you think of part 2, Mike?
A little too much action, maybe.
I think I enjoyed this a little bit more than you did, maybe.
I found the action to be a little draggy.
Yeah, there's some...
Or just poorly executed, I guess. I mean, the fact that... So the fight with the death probe, that entire thing happens in slow motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which gets a little old. I mean, it's, you know, the slow motion is not, it's only slightly slow, but, I mean, it's not like, it's just not super slow. It's just enough to, it's actually, he's using bionics.
It's definitely, it's stylized, but
it's stylized, yeah. Which I saw somewhere references, I think Kung Fu did that first. So, like, in Hollywood, they called it Kung Fu motion or something.
Ah, okay.
But I mean, so the first scene of him fighting the death probe went on for, I don't know, 10 minutes, it seemed like.
But isn't that what you want to see from the episode? You want to see the $6 Million Man duke it out with this space probe, right?
You do. I just, you know, maybe not quite that long.
I'll say this.
I liked when he, like, jumped over. Well, no, that's later. That's the second. That's the other thing. So there's that sequence, and then there's where he's trying to get it so that Popov can shoot it.
Yeah.
And then there's the helicopter one.
Right.
The helicopter one is by far the
the helicopter one...
most exhausting one.
Yeah, they show that one in exacting detail, everything he's doing, including him, like, up in the cockpit and, like, you know, fastening things and arranging things.
Yeah. And the headband, which I guess is to hold back the little bit of hair that might have gotten in his face.
Yeah, although he's hovering above... He's suspended over the thing in the first place. That seemed a little gratuitous to me. Like, I thought he was going to, like, hide some kind of, like, tool or place some kind of device that he's going to need in the headband.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, kind of serving the function of a pocket. But no, I guess it was just for style.
Yeah. It was being like Chuck Norris before Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Or Rambo before Rambo.
So yeah, that sequence definitely was longer than it could have, and a lot of cutting, cross-cutting back and forth with Oscar and showing like the other soldiers watching and just basically everybody just looking up at the sky. That was a little padded. Matter of fact, here's the thing: this didn't need to be a 2-part episode. I think is the thing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It would have been like a really great 1-part episode, and I think your concerns with the length of some of these sequences would have disappeared. And it's not like the episode needed to build up a lot of character. I mean, that flashback in part 1 killed a few minutes.
Yeah.
There's a recap at the beginning of part 2 that takes like 5 minutes.
Right.
So they're kind of stretching it a little bit to make this a 2-parter, I think.
Yeah. They are, I think, distinct in their character. Like the first one has a lot of that, the sort of espionage kind of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is more just about stopping it and using ultimately science. Like I kind of like that about it, that the solution was a scientific solution.
Yeah, Steve actually draws it up on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
And is showing like the trajectory of the craft and making planets and things like that. So it's almost like with like Professor Whoopi on the old Tennessee Tuxedo. He's diagramming this out and showing so that everybody can see it. It's interesting.
Would that make Popoff Chumley?
Yeah, Popoff is Chumley. And Tennessee would be, I don't know who Tennessee is, but yeah. And one thing, actually, since you mentioned it, that is a cool thing that they show when he's kind of trying to maneuver the death probe. Yeah. He does a couple of like standing jumps over the like these high jumps over the thing, and Popoff sees this, and he just kind of like shakes his head a little bit, and he's like, maybe the concussion is playing tricks with my eyes. Couldn't it be? And then he sees it again.
Right.
And he asks Oscar, how did he do that? And Oscar's just like, Colonel Austin is a very athletic man. So, Popoff knows something's up and he's intrigued by it. But it's kind of a it's a funny moment. It's funny enough, I think, that they have a guy with a concussion go out and making this precision shot with this incredibly explosive device he's launching from his shoulder. Which,
I mean, he takes way too much time to take that shot, too.
Yeah.
Which always whenever you have somebody with a scope like that in a show, it always seems like they have the shot, and then oh no, that tree's in the way or whatever. But
well, it's kind of like an NFL quarterback sometimes. Sometimes some quarterbacks are more reluctant to throw it down the field, and the joke is that like they want their receivers to be college open. It's like, hey, in the NFL, you're not going to get that open. Eventually, if you get the shot, you got to just take the shot.
Yeah.
Then, however, he doesn't bother to waiting for Steve to get out of the way before he fires it, which cracked me up. He literally cuts off Oscar right in the middle of him, telling him to wait for Steve to get out of the way, but he just goes and fires it, but it doesn't stop.
Now, the thing I don't quite understand about that weapon, or the case it was in the first part, he says, if someone else tries to open this, it'll basically explode in a way that, like a nuclear weapon.
Right, he said it could level city blocks or something like that, he says. Yeah,
but the lock on the case is just...
It's just a simple,
it's just a dial.
It's like a combination lock.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like he has some retinal scan or fingerprint-based... Like, no, he just had to know that, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then beep, just opens it. Actually, there wasn't even a beep. It was just like a regular case.
It's just that, and then it has some clasps.
Yeah. Some American tourister thing that the Soviets Soviet tourister, excuse me, that he just fashioned into a little case for this thing. I don't know. Maybe he was BSing everybody about him being the only one that could open the case.
But that suggests that's why he's shooting it. Like maybe he's the only person who's allowed to shoot it.
Yeah.
But I feel like someone, they got a lot of military people around.
Yeah, somebody passed their marksmanship exam at West Point. Could probably go ahead and do this.
Unfortunately, John Delancey from Star Trek: The Next Generation is only a medic.
Oh yes. You want to describe his little moment in the sun?
Oh, I got to try to remember it.
I believe isn't he the one?
Does he faint?
Yes, he's the one that.
He
wants to help Steve.
Right, and they're like, no, he's fine. And then he sees like wires and stuff, and he faints.
The exposed wires, and he faints. Kind of like straight out of the beginning of Quincy or something like that. He does this exaggerated pass out. Who knows what that guy's seen in the battlefield? I guess in a peacetime army, you don't kind of see those kind of. You don't see anything as heinous as exposed wiring.
It wasn't really a peacetime then, though, was it?
Well, this is 1977, right?
Oh, 77. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when the show began.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he probably got in post-Vietnam.
Yeah, he probably exactly.
He's just young enough to have missed any real war. So
yeah, so that's another one of the notable names in the episode. I'm glad you pointed that out.
I mean, he shows up briefly in the first part, but he didn't get a credit, and I wasn't 100% sure it was him. And then
I totally didn't recognize him at all.
Yeah, that was fun little sighting that you always get in the old shows. People on their way up, although I guess it was a long way up.
Yeah.
So by the way, Wikipedia, one of the bionic actions they list for this episode, bionic juking.
Bionic juking.
So I don't know which fight.
I'm trying to think of the bionic juking.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I'm glad that somebody at Wikipedia, they still have a sense of humor at Wikipedia, apparently. I might have to edit that because it doesn't meet community standards. Bionic juking.
Yeah. So I'm not even sure what that's like. Sort
maybe
of
like
dodging,
kind of like the feints he's making. Yeah. That's probably I'm assuming that they're probably. I think when he's trying to draw it out, he's just kind of like rocking back and forth on his heels and stuff, and showing some of that great bionic footwork. Yeah. And the bionic juking, he's bionic juking.
And they didn't. It seemed like they were going to make more of the probe looking at itself in the mirror.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a big thing because Irina makes it. He's apparently found some fascinating specimen, and then they show him like looking at himself in a mirror. And that's. It kind of seemed like they were pointing up towards a very Star Trek-like solution. Like a lot of episodes, Kirk would have to trick some machine into like destroying itself.
Right.
And I thought that's what they were going to do, is like maybe have it destroy itself somehow.
Right.
See itself as a threat, but no, it just kind of admired itself and posed and brushed some lint off its panels, made itself look pretty and threw the mirror away, I guess.
Yeah, it got rolling again.
Yeah.
And its endless, unstoppable zigzag pattern.
Yes, it was exactly. It was a set program pattern as if it would have been doing on Venus.
Yeah.
So it was designed to do this zigzag, a very consistent pattern. Although if you come up to it, it turned around quite a bit though in these two episodes.
Right. It must be able to get back on course.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
Every time it gets attacked.
Yeah, now that I think about it, for a machine called Death Probe, although nobody in this episode actually calls it Death Probe, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a lot of killer instinct. It didn't finish off the farmer. It didn't finish off Major Popoff. It did attempt to finish off Steve Austin, but
it also attempted to saw itself free of the helicopter.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah,
that little disc saw again.
Right. Yeah.
It pulled it out and tried to sever the.
I think it blew up right as it was about to.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah.
It was another thing that was.
Another layer of tension.
Yes.
Yeah. The problem there, going back to that scene, is that a lot of that stuff wasn't. It was only tension-inducing in the sense of like, when is this going to end?
Wow. That's a harsh assessment.
It wasn't. It didn't build the suspense, and like that did, and some of the reactions and stuff. But some of the added detail.
I think it might have been more effective. I mean, too, it's not like the thing itself was explosive. I mean, it was like, if it had freed itself, it's not like it was a bomb that he was trying to get out of the Earth's atmosphere or something. It basically, the worst that would happen was it would fall down, and then they'd have to figure something else out, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It might have hurt someone below.
Yeah.
Depending on where it fell.
I wonder if they could have like dug a big hole or something and buried it, or or maneuvered it into some body of water. I don't.
Yeah. Just like an empty swimming pool.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Go around in circles.
Yeah. It's fortunate that it had. Yeah. Just in 5 years, it would have ran out of fuel and tired itself out after 5 years.
Right.
It is fortunate that it had, and they did set this up because earlier when Steve was jumping over the thing, he noticed, and they show you that he noticed like the little hole, the opening, and the top of it.
Right.
Suitable for some kind of grappling hook, and
so which was originally there to load it into the rocket, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't trust it to just load itself into the rocket. Okay, come on, probe. No, a little more to your left. Okay.
Stop zigzagging.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and it was good because they had to fashion a threaded bolt to go in there. Luckily, Irina was there, so she knew the exact threading.
Yes, she rattled off exactly the exact specs for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan worked.
Yeah.
Oops, wait a minute. I think I just did spoil it, didn't I? I was trying not to.
Well, we don't know if... we know he survived.
Yeah, we know. We get a nice... You do see by the end of the episode, he has a little moment with Irina. And
yeah, it seems like maybe they're going to have a nighttime of reminiscing.
Hey.
Before she has to go back to Russia.
I just raised my non-bionic eyebrow in response to that. Yeah, so, well, actually...
But he's very gentlemanly.
We should mention it. There is
everything.
a thoughtful moment at the end where they're sort of talking, and they're sort of talking about what might have been between them.
Yeah.
Because we should mention, too, I don't think I mentioned... Popov was he was the Soviets' top agent in America.
Yeah, they were after him.
Yeah, but Irina just apparently came over instantly
right.
on one hell of a supersonic jet or something as soon as that she learned that the probe was in Wyoming.
Yeah.
So she's not normally in America.
Right.
So this is why it can never be with her and Steve.
Yeah.
But so Steve kind of has a little moment with her at the end where he's looking up at the stars, and she's like, "Oh, why is it every man I know has to have his head in the sky," or something like that. He's like,
Yeah.
"Well, I was just thinking about something." And how does he put it? He says something like,
If we made that one, something like that, we made that. What if the next one comes from up there?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And again, our knowledge of the show isn't that much, but I remember we watched one of the Bigfoot episodes once together. Mm-hmm. And the Bigfoot was actually like some sort of alien robot.
Yeah, and
so he's already aware of extraterrestrials.
Right, and not only is he a former astronaut pilot, but he's been to the moon, and he references it and when he's talking about his big plan, like, yeah, kind of like that time I went to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, wait, oh yeah.
The whole slingshotting thing comes up. Yeah.
Right. So so he definitely does have his head in the sky, but the episode ends on kind of a thoughtful note there, like kind of a little caution there. Yeah, what happens if the next thing is made from up there?
Yeah, I like that about his character, that he's not just an action guy.
No, he's
smart.
He has a curiosity about things.
Exactly. Which you'd have to be, I think, to be a test pilot. You have to have some brains, not just the sort of daredevil.
Yeah, he's not like a Hal Jordan type. Not that Hal Jordan isn't cerebral, but he's not.
Hal Jordan's a dummy.
Yeah, Hal Jordan, of course, the
Green Lantern.
One of the Green Lanterns, yeah. But no, that's a good point. In this episode, he's the one that he's a thinker. Mm-hmm. He's got a natural curiosity about things and wants to learn more about things. I do like the way they end the episode. I'm not sure how great the chemistry is between him and Irina, who is played by a British actress, I believe. To no surprise, in 1977, they didn't have an actual Soviet television actress come over and although that would have been great, and then they could have sent Lee Majors.
Exchange program.
Yeah, he could have been over and been on the 20 million ruble man.
Right.
With Steve Austin. Teaming up with the 20 million ruble man.
Right. In Russia.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know how to finish that joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we could just let it there. The concept of the 20 million ruble man, but
yeah. So
that's Death Probe. I really like the episode, and I want to thank Andrew for suggesting it, because again, I didn't have much of it. A lot of the shows is somewhat new to me as far as actually watching the episode, so it was a cool episode. I definitely enjoyed it. I don't think it needed to be 2 episodes. The only thing, I think it would have made an outstanding 1-part episode and maybe trim some of the fat in there. But overall, I enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it, and it does make me want to watch some more of the episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed part 1 more than part 2, but could have been 1 episode or 1.5 episodes.
Yeah, maybe a 90-minute event.
Yeah, 90-minute event movie. That could have been. But it's a fun show, and it's definitely of its time, and which is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. To me, it has it had a lot of things. I like kind of the action sequences. I was a little disappointed by the Death Probe, but the more I think about it, the more I kind of enjoy the Death Probe. And forget about back then. I'd kind of like a Death Probe toy now. Somebody make that, please.
Well,
as long as it lights up and has the extendable claw thing.
Right.
I'll get that.
Maybe that'll be part of the the movie they're making.
Yeah, could be.
I didn't know they were making a movie until after. Like, I was having the thought watching, I'm like, oh, well, if they made this today, they would have to change the name because $6 million wouldn't get you a Bionic Man. Well, turns out Mark Wahlberg's going to be in the $6 billion.
Oh, it's Mark Wahlberg? Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like for years they've been talking about
this.
Yeah,
I think Kevin Smith was going to do it.
Yeah, I thought Jim Carrey was attached to a version at one point. But if it ever happens, I hope there's a place for the Death Probe.
Right. I imagine we'll have Bigfoot, if anything, just as an enemy.
Yeah, you'd have to have Bigfoot if you're going to appeal at all to fans of the original show. But who knows the way they do these adaptations, if they even care about fans of the original show.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do it as a comedy or gritty drama.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but I definitely enjoyed this. I enjoyed our first two-part, our first listener submitted request.
Yeah, Andrew, I know, but listeners out there, maybe we know you, maybe we don't, but we are interested in suggestions for other episodes.
Yeah, whether
maybe
it be
something we
a
don't
series
know.
or an episode, something we haven't covered, a new genre. Feel free to let us know. We definitely consider it. As long as it's something that we have access to and can conceivably watch. So we don't. I don't think we can go to the Paley Center and track down.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we could.
Yeah, we'll make a separate list of things that when we make our trip to the Paley Center for the show research, we'll do that.
But so Netflix, Hulu, DVD, YouTube will accept.
Yeah. 16mm film in a shoebox in your closet, as long as you send it to us and give us a projector so we can watch it.
Right, yeah.
We're open to different possibilities.
Slideshows.
Yeah, film strips, Viewmaster reels.
LPs.
Yeah. LPs with comic book, accompanying comic book supplements.
All right, Death Probe, parts 1 and 2.
This episode brought to you by the OSI. We have the technology. This episode also brought to you by Telecase. Now you can carry your phone wherever you go. This episode also brought to you by Venus. Visit for the balmy weather, stay because you're dead. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.